Thank you very much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Kiernan, and welcome to the December 12th, 2023 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Commission members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town bylaw governing the wetlands. We have two matters of formality that we address at the beginning of the meeting. First is that we invite everyone to speak, ask questions, make comments. But we do ask that you introduce yourself for purposes of the record. And by way of notice to the public, this meeting is being recorded. The second issue of formality is that we always introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan. I'll just go right across what I'm reading here. Steve, can you go next?
Steve Ibis, a conservation agent.
And Philip, can you go next?
Philip Driscoll, conservation agent. Conservation clerk.
Thank you. Tom Palmer?
Tom Palmer, member of commission.
Arthur, you're on mute.
Arthur Doyle, member.
Thank you. Wendy?
Good evening. I'm Wendy Garpa, one of the commissioners.
All right, we have our quorum. I don't see any other commission members, but Steve, will you keep your eye out for them so they can introduce themselves if they join us?
Will do.
I'm not aware of anything being continued on tonight's agenda, so we'll get right into number one. This is Peverly Park. This is information only. We have a presenter for Peverly Park.
Hi, John. This is Bill Madden. How are you?
Hey, good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Just as a quick intro, actually, Phil, or who gives me control of the screen? Or can I just hit share my screen?
I do, Bill. This is Steve.
Hey, Steve, could you give me control and I'll pull up our slideshow?
Sure. Be happy to.
That'd be great.
There you go.
Can everyone see this first slide?
Yes, Bill, we can.
Great, thank you. So as an introduction, my name is Bill Madden with Gregory Lombardi Design. We're landscape architects, and we design playgrounds, open space, campus, universities, residential, retail, all types of landscapes. And I'm also a resident of Milton. And so it's really a highlight of my professional career when I can actually help shape the Milton landscape and be a part of groups like you guys, as well as the planning board, and collaborate on successful landscapes. Our team is made up of Kevin Chisholm, who's the parks director, and we have two very passionate residents of Milton that are also leading this charge. Jackie LaFawn, I believe Jackie's on the call as well, and Lisa Barone, and my associate Matt Gillen from Lombardi Design. And so really our intent today, we've started discussing sort of what we're trying to achieve from a social aspect of the town, and the ecological aspect from a town perspective is very important too. So we're trying to marry the two, and we think that we've come up with a strategy that will work quite well, and we're looking forward to getting your feedback so we can shape this space so it meets everyone's expectations from a town perspective. What we're going to share with you guys is sort of the larger sort of concept and vision of what this park could ultimately be. Jackie and Lisa, their challenge right now is to generate the funding and possibly additional funding for this park. So we're still very much a work in progress, and we just wanted to share this with you at a very early stage, so we could continue to refine and develop this very important playground for the community and neighborhood of Peverly Park. So to start out, these are some existing condition site, and I'm sure you guys are aware of the site. Currently, it's just a mown lawn. There's some of the activity that occurs on this is dog walking, some ball play, but we really want the intent from a neighborhood standpoint is to activate this and create a resource for active play for the local residents and the regional residents of the town of Milton. This is a plan that shows you more of the political lines. So you can see here the sort of light blue is the water of Pine Tree Brook. And then it goes into a culvert ultimately, but it's daylit here. This dashed line is the tree canopy edge. And then this sort of yellow green is the current mown lawn that's mown by DPW. The first setback off of the brook is the 50-foot off brook setback, which is this line here. And the 100-foot riverfront area, which is the setback here. There are a few trees that are on the site. One that is actually, I believe it's dead, and there's a few that are still struggling, but we're going to try to sort of protect those and enhance them as we bring this project forward. And so what you're going to see in a moment is that we've used this 100-foot setback as our prime location for the disturbance of the site. So anything outboard of that is where we're proposing to have the playground, so we can protect the sensitive site inboard of that 100-foot setback. This image right here is showing the relationship of this play space, which is here, off of this 100-foot setback, which is here. One of the things that we're interested in, and this is where we're thinking about sort of being sensitive to the ecology of the site, is that, you know, currently a mown lawn is not necessarily good for runoff, you know, the footprint, the carbon footprint for the site. So we have a strong interest of sort of taking a portion of this site and sort of returning it back to more of a natural state, while engaging sort of natural play within the zone. So the idea is that we're doing sort of two things at once, creating sort of a play opportunity, which we refer to as natural play, while also removing the lawn that's here. We would keep this lawn, we wouldn't touch it, the project would keep it as is. And then the play equipment would be isolated to this section here that's outboard of the 100-foot zone. There would be a fence for safety for the children that would be close to the roadway. And, you know, we would provide ADA parking. And we're starting to look at sort of the types of play equipment and seating opportunities that would, you know, create this as a destination for the community. That's the big idea, the concept of sort of what we're really after. And we're going to show you some pictures of sort of this natural play idea. But right now, what we know that what we can afford is the sort of play zone, which is right here. And so we're suggesting that we leave this sort of monoculture of turf unmown, and we let that become sort of a natural condition. And then there's a mown path. There's a small little pedestrian curb cut right here. So the concept is to make a explicit connection to the footbridge that is in this location. So we're suggesting that we would DPW would mow 2 walk pathways to the footbridge, and then we would keep this section here as sort of a mown condition, again, for dog walkers.
Can you repeat that and just move your cursor again so I know exactly where you are?
Sure. Can you see my cursor here?
Yes.
So this blue line is showing a connection to the footbridge right here. And then this would be a mowed surface. This would be the same thing here. And this section right here, we would let it naturalize. And there would be no more mowing that would occur in this section. And really the intention of that is to sort of say, we're making a very clear corridor, pedestrian corridor to the footbridge, without doing any sort of impervious surface. And we can come back to this.
If I may,
please.
can we go back to that frame for just a moment, please?
Please.
And I heard you say that this area with the blue line and the arrow is a mown pathway.
Correct.
The citation on the map is a no-mow pathway, so you may want to correct that.
So this, That's very good. Thank you. So what the idea here is, so red fescue turfs. Have you guys used that or made proposals to include that? So that's what we're suggesting to occur here. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be mown. The surface of this area will probably blend into this, but the concept is to make this as minimally intrusive from an ecological standpoint as possible, and it would be a connection to the footbridge.
But we also have a pathway that goes around the pond up toward we were at the end of that arrow.
Correct.
So that mow pathway, those two mow pathways would be very appropriate for connectivity to the entrance into Turner's Pond. I mean, to Pope's Pond.
Thank you. Yeah, that's our intention. Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm just want to show you some imagery, sort of like some precedent images, and then we can go back to the plan. I would love to hear the commission's comments on this. So just as a point of reference, in the play space is more conventional play equipment. And you can start to see sort of what this layout would be. This would be potentially the troweled rubber surface, fall protection. And you can start to see how this is a potential layout. We're meeting with you guys at a very early stage. We haven't even picked the equipment yet. We just did sort of a layout just to get a sense of how it would feel in the space.
What is, if you can go back to the previous slide?
This
If you
one?
just scroll up a little bit. No, if they go back, you're right there. Exactly. What is that surface? Right
It's a
there? Is that a pervious surface?
Yes. Have you been to Shields Park recently? The new Shields Park? It's the same surface that's at Shields Park. It's a troweled rubber surface, essentially.
And it is pervious.
It's impervious. So it does not
You'd
let
have to
water.
have some drainage. You'd have to have some drainage plans to see where does the water go if it's impervious.
So the water would sheet off of this.
Sure, it would. Where? I mean, is it? Is there an elevation change there? I mean, my memory is it's pretty flat.
It is relatively flat. Yeah, we're at the we didn't want to get too far and start to design the site topography at this point, but we'll start to illustrate where the site is drained for sure.
Okay, I know this is just informational.
Yep. No,
but that will be a question that you'll get.
All of your comments are valuable for us at this point. That sort of concept of nature play was the idea of turning the current. I'm gonna flip to it quickly and then I'll come back to that slide. The idea of taking this zone right now, which is all grass, turf. We have a rain garden here, and John, that sort of answers part of the idea was that we would pitch some of the water to this low area, but again, we would need approval to modify this grade, and so that's sort of a conversation down the line about what level of intrusion we could have into that portion of the site. But the concept was extending that landscape so it would allow for sort of natural sort of elements to be within it, while at the same time, from a social neighborhood standpoint, play could occur. The notion of adding pollinators, Joe Pye weed, a lot of different sort of native species in here to sort of make this something really special. There's also a concept of integrating this landscape in with the local public schools and use this as learning opportunities, with their pollinator gardens. This was the concept of the mown pathway that would be flanked potentially by meadow. These types of play environments, there's not prescriptive play equipment, but you can integrate drainage structures in, with this environment where kids play. And it could be a really cool sort of thing that integrates the idea of a very sensitive ecology with the idea of sort of like the social ecology of Milton. And that's what we wanted to share with you guys at this point. And so I want to go back to the plan, and I'd love I'd love to field any questions or concerns that you guys might have about this. And I'm going to stick with this one at this time, just because I know that funding is available for us to sort of execute this project. So I'm all open ears on sort of what, if we have any comments or concerns at this point.
Sure, I can make a comment, and that is, I think your plan is pretty accurate because just I think it was the 1st of December, or maybe the 2nd of December, there was a team from Northeastern University School of Engineering out there on a site walk at which Chase Berkeley was there as well, and I was there. And we were trying to figure out where the bridge is going to go. And if you look at the top, where there's you can see the meets and bounds and that sharp point that's white above the blue area. If you can move your cursor, yeah, right there, exactly right. That is what I referred to as a pinch point of private property. And that's probably the closest that it is the closest that the property gets to Pine Tree Brook. And that's approximately the location of wetland flag number 60 that's already been delineated there. And that's ballpark the area where the bridge is going to go. Okay. So your design here is prescient. I mean, you must have anticipated exactly where the bridge is going to go. It hasn't been located yet. We're waiting for the wetland flags to be put onto the GIS map with GPS location for the flags. But that's ballpark where it's going to go. Great. And then in addition, for your knowledge, that the Conservation Commission has a proposal before the CPC for funding, not just to connect the path from where your pathway ends, but further to the left, where it would connect the bridge to the existing pathway that goes through the bridge, goes through the woods to the north side bridge, pedestrian bridge that's already there.
Okay.
But in addition to that, we have another proposal for CPC funding, and that is to make that pathway, at least with a feasibility study, to make it entirely handicapped accessible. The reason I say that is that if that goes through, and if we're able to get the funding for handicapped accessible, that would be both pervious and have the capacity to support wheelchairs. It would be a great idea if we could extend that handicapped accessible pathway through at least one of those pathways that you're showing right here. And
John,
that would allow
handicapped
accessibility.
Yeah, and what we can do too, and this is, I think, where, your interests and our interests sort of like will start to overlap each other, is that in this scheme here, we showed this idea of doing 2 handicap parking spots that are sort of inboard of the site or within the site, so they weren't parking so the cars weren't parking on the parallel parking on the road. But again, I think we could integrate, if someone wanted to use the path and they wanted to park, there would be a very easy place to park and connect in with the sort of walking trail system. Please keep us in the loop in that, because we can, we have the ability to coordinate our design with sort of the developments of your path system.
That's perfect. And thank you, because part of your funding for the study of the placement of this of the playground, we joined together. We were using the same survey team, Morse Engineering, to do the survey, and they also did the wetlands delineation, and they're the group that's going to put these together. So it's partially the funding that you received for that is the Beverly Park and the Parks Department that was the applicant for this. So we're kind of joining forces to see if we can make some economies of scale and have some cost savings and efficiency to get the survey and the plan done. So things are moving forward, I think, appropriately, and this looks great.
That's great. And I have to call out someone, because I met him for the first time last week and I had a very good conversation with him. But Tom, do you have any thoughts or comments on this current plan?
Yeah, overall, I think it's very much an improvement, because as you say, it is all just a lawn now. When you have it divided up into these various areas, all that is going to be missing that's available now is to run a 100-yard dash the length of it. That's about all the grass gives you. I did think it occurred to me, you have a notation here on the right of your drawing. It's above those last two circles, and it says approximate location of Trout Brook. Now, you know there isn't any brook there. Now, Trout Brook is a pipe.
Correct.
Yeah, and did you consider maybe daylighting that portion of the brook? That would mean excavating the pipe and creating a little channel for the brook there. It's true on the other side of Sumner, it's back in the pipe, I guess.
Mhm.
But here would be another restoration opportunity on the site that I think the trout would like better than the pipe.
I think you're right. I mean, I'm sure that this neighborhood would love to do that. I know, right now our scope and our charge is really just to focus on the playground. And that note, just so you're aware, that note is denoted by the surveyor that sort of collected this existing condition data for us.
Yeah. Yeah, you can stand in the brook and look up that pipe. It's a concrete pipe.
Yeah.
I think it's about 4 feet in diameter. And if you look up that pipe, you can't see any light. And it does stand above the bed of the brook, I believe, which is also an issue. A hanging culvert is a problem.
Yeah.
But I do get it, what you're saying about being hired to do the playground.
Can I have one question for you guys, and this is just the where I need your guidance is, John, to your point about where is water going? Would we be able to, in this unmown lawn area, create a small little? So this would be inboard of the 100-foot setback. Would we be able to create a little bioswale to collect our stormwater from this surface? Is there any issue with between the 50 and the 100-foot to create that swale condition for drainage?
Well, it's a fair question. I don't have a quick answer for it. If as long as it's enhancing that inner riparian zone, and it would be an enhancement if the water coming off the pervious surface were going to erode that area.
Okay.
But the question would be, could you accomplish the same end by putting it into like some kind of a Kolchak chamber and just recharging it, down below the surface?
Yep. That's an option too. Yep, for sure. Well, if there's not any more comments or thoughts, I just wanted to thank everyone for your time. We wanted to share this with you because we know that, this is a very sensitive site ecologically, and then also it's such an important site for this neighborhood. So we wanted to just make sure that you had your eyes on it, and I'm sure you'll be seeing it again once we begin to refine this design over the next few months.
Bill, thank you very much. There may be some other questions or comments from commissions, commission
please.
members, and or members of the public. Wendy, Arthur, anything?
I don't have anything to add other than the fact that I'm very excited to see this project coming into fruition, and I really do like the transition that you've created between the more hardscape and the naturescape. I think that is very creative use of what's really a challenging site.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Arthur, anything, or we can move to the abutters or members of the public that have a question or a comment? And I can't see hands raised, so Steve, you'll have
Nothing
the
beyond
floor.
what I stated earlier, Mr. Chairman. Just to let Bill know that as a reference point, I live next door to the park, the playground at Andrews. So I'm pretty familiar with what you're proposing here, and it really looks good.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I can't see. Steve, can you see any hands raised, members of the public?
I cannot.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bill. We look forward to a more definitive permit application from the Parks Department in the
Great.
near future. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thanks, John. Thanks,
And
Commission.
also, I know that Jackie's been pushing this, and Kevin Chisholm and Lisa, Matt, so we thank you all.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Next on the agenda is number 2, request for certificate of compliance at 339 Hillside Street. Steve, do we have an applicant? I think we do.
Yes, Nicholas Liang, I believe, is representing tonight. Nicholas, are you there? I heard a little note, but I don't see you.
We can wait for him to join later, because I know he was good enough earlier today to send in not a revised plan, but one that was clearer. And I could see the water line, but I did have some questions for him. Because I thought they were removing a water line from the back of the property. And for the public's benefit, this is one in which the commission actually did do a site visit here to see where the work was going to go. There are some sensitive wetlands in the area, and it appears to have been done properly and in accordance. But I would like the applicant to be present.
Nicholas, are you there? I see your N, large N. Please unmute yourself. And I'll make you a co-host so you can show that. Okay,
Oh, looks like he just came off mute.
good.
Nicholas, can you, it looks like you're back on mute. Can you hear us, Nicholas? Nope.
Came up.
It looks like there are some technical difficulties right here. If you could keep trying and just keep an eye on the waiting room to see if he goes out and comes back in again, Steve.
Sure. In
Right,
the
so
meantime,
in the
Nicholas,
meantime,
is that
what?
you? In the meantime, Deb Keller is here for number 3.
All right, let's go to number 3. And Nicholas, when we get by your technical difficulties, we'll come back to you. So for the public's benefit, we are on number 3, notice of intent, access road, town of Milton, Quarry Hills.
Good
And
evening,
Deb,
everybody.
Good evening, Deb.
I've just
Deb.
made you co-host as well, Deb. Okay.
Oh, great. I can share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Just, I guess, Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. To remind everybody, we did meet with the commission and we went out for a site visit. Seems like a few weeks ago now. And walked the access road and the line. We just discussed the existing conditions for the site. We have since received a DEP file number, and currently we are working with Natural Heritage to sort out some work with some habitat area that is located on the town property adjacent, so within the wetland area to the south of the access road. So I think that's a pretty much a summary of where we're at. I do owe you a quick memo just so that you've got the impervious numbers in front of you or for your record. And one of the discussions that was had with Natural Heritage, I'm gonna try to get to the grading plan here. So originally we're proposing 3 outfalls for discharge. One of the things that we will be looking are investigating with Natural Heritage is whether or not we could combine these and bring them all down to this one discharge at the intersection. That minimizes the disturbance to the habitat area. We wouldn't have to come in at these two locations. So it might be something that hopefully I can make work from a drainage standpoint. That does, you know, sort of focus the drainage to that lower, I guess, discharge point that's near the intersection. So nothing final, but I just wanted to let you know that that's what we were looking at with Natural Heritage to try to help work with them. And I'm happy to answer any other additional questions if you had any.
Sure, Deb, mine is more of a comment than it is a question at this stage, but
Sure.
when we were on the site visit, for the public's benefit, that the commission was concerned with where the water was, the drainage was going to. And as I understand it, one is going down the existing driveway, and the other three outfalls were heading onto the access road. But I'm going to say this without mathematical certainty, but most of the water was going to the head wall, which is where you pointed out, where the access road intersects with Randolph Avenue.
Yes.
That's an area of concern for us because there is a project, a 40B project going in across the street at 7-Eleven. What we refer to it as 7-Eleven. It's actually, I think, 699 to 7-Eleven Randolph Avenue. And the drainage from that area actually ends up in the same place.
So
And
it comes across.
Right, it cuts diagonally across that intersection. And there's a head wall right where your cursor is. So we were just concerned that the amount of water being dumped into that, we want to make sure that there is a capacity to handle all that water, because you're coming from both sides and kind of being focused in that area. I don't know, and I appreciate exactly what you said, Deb, in terms of if you take the 3 discharge points and make them 1 discharge point at the head wall, that may be a benefit to, you know, some of the habitat at the other, I say upper section, the first 2 discharge points currently planned.
Right.
But it might have another potentially adverse impact, because that's a lot of water that's being joined by all the water coming from the other project. And I don't know if your calculations are done with a recognition that there are going to be other increased water discharges coming from the other side. So I guess that is a question. Are you aware of the increase in the discharge from the other side of the road?
We did not incorporate that in our study. No. So I didn't realize that they were increasing the flow coming across the street.
Can you explain that? But does that, just like every project, then you need to retain all your runoff within your property. So what additional flow are we talking about? Because all that flow right now that's all Mass DOT roadway flow that goes into that head wall. So I'm not sure what flow you're talking about. So all the flow for this 7-Eleven 40B will need to be retained on its own site with infiltration, detention ponds, and all that stuff.
Right,
I'm
and
not sure exactly what we're talking about.
I'll tell you, Rob, and we've gone through that with DEP because there was an appeal of our order, because we were looking for additional information. DEP issued a superseding order, but during the appellate process, the commission was out there and we walked the site and we ended up right at that place. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're increasing their flow, because they're subject to the same performance standards that you are.
Right. Yeah.
But what I'm suggesting is that it's being concentrated at that area. That's sort of the end point of the water coming off the site. And the site I'm talking about is the 7-Eleven Randolph Avenue.
Yeah, so we're not proposing to increase any flow. As you can see,
I understand that.
Yeah, there's a huge slope from the access road, and all that water, majority of that water, some of it sheds off into basically the southern side of the access road, but the majority does go where that head wall is right now because of the general slope, etc. And all of Mass DOT's water, just like most roads from Mass DOT, they just dump it into the, a head wall or a side, someone else's property. But yeah, I mean, we could look at potentially, so there's a reason why, we want to potentially combine those three and discharge it at the entrance is because on the southern side of the access road is a mapping, is the National Heritage mapping, and we don't, by though the two northerly side outfalls, head wall, these flared ends, we're protruding into that mapping. So there's other things we could look at. Maybe we could look at pulling back those flared ends right at the limit of the mapping, and then we don't have to connect the two. So we'll just take a look at that. But just big picture is all the flow from the access road is going to that head wall down at the exit, the entrance there. So,
No,
majority.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand that your calculations currently conform to the performance standards.
Yeah.
My comment is, and maybe it's a question, but partly a comment, is that by improving the natural heritage discharge points, by taking 3 discharge points and making them 1, are we creating a problem?
Right.
And so I just like them to take a look at whether or not that is an improvement, if it's creating an adverse impact. And it may not be creating an adverse impact.
Yeah.
If you take the 2 or the 3 and make it 1 at the head wall, if the capacity is sufficient at the head wall, fine.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
they're
not looking for a problem, Rob. I'm trying to
Yeah.
avoid.
right. No, I agree. I agree. They're concerned with their governing authority, which is the protection of the reptiles in that area, and for us, not to be infringing on that mapping. So, we come to find out that it's not just a line on a map; it's adjacent areas as well, which is very difficult to understand. But so I've hired a consultant to represent me, and we're gonna we're providing information right now to National Heritage, and we're going to work that out and figure out, exactly what we can do and what, like I said, I think the best thing maybe to do is leave these 3 discharge points as is, and maybe pull back the flared ends to the edge of the mapping so that, we could leave these 3 discharge points.
So I'll definitely, John, I made a note and I'll look at it as we move through that process with natural heritage. And if we do have to consider the one combined outlet, I'll see if I can look at that and provide some information as to what, if any, impacts that would be at that location.
Perfect. Thank you, Deb.
Mhm.
Any questions from commissioners? I don't hear anything, but somebody might be on mute. Steve, do you have any comments or questions?
Nope, not at all.
All right. Are there members of the public, abutters or otherwise? All right. So the additional information you're going to get, do you expect to have that, Deb, by January meeting time?
When do you think, Rob, you'd be meeting with Natural Heritage again?
Well, it's going to be a process, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it's, basically they've requested some general information, submit the information, and then, as our discussions, Deb, they decide whether it's a take or not a take.
Right.
And then we, if they do decide it is a take, then it's a, could be a
Longer
fairly
process.
longer process. And then, it's a little complicated too, to be honest with you, because there's, I don't own the access road, the town does. And then they want to know any pending projects, is basically the extension of the access road, the animal shelters. So, yeah, it's I wouldn't say January. If we could extend it further out, that'd be possible.
Well, we can continue it until February if you'd like, but I don't want to slow the process down.
Yeah.
So why don't we do it this way? Well, why don't we continue it until the February, but if you get the information faster than you think, we can move it to
Sure.
January.
Okay.
All right, so at least for the record, we'll continue it to the February meeting, which is I don't have the date, but it's the second Tuesday in February. All right, any other thoughts, comments? If not, thank you, Deb, thank you, Rob, and we'll
Thank-
move. Let's go back to.
Thank you, sir.
Number two.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you all. Let's go back to number 2 and see whether or not Nicholas he's gotten by his technical problems.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect. There you are. Good.
I don't know what was going on before. Sorry about that.
All right. Could you hear us?
I could hear you the whole thing. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, you're on, and you can screen share if you need to. And by the way, thank you for sending that. It was certainly clearer to me when you sent the second plan.
Yes.
It might have been the
you're
same
welcome.
plan. I just could see it look better.
Yeah, when we scan them in, sometimes they don't come through as boldly as the PDF version originally does. So that was not a surprise, but sometimes it's better than others. Anyhow, I don't have the ability to share my screen right. I had spoken with Steve about this yesterday. But if someone else could put the plan up, that would be helpful. It's not necessary as far as discussing what was going on out there, though. And
Yeah, I just
basically
had some questions. So Steve, if you could share the screen.
Hmm.
Oh, my name is Nicholas Ling with Grady Consulting, by the way. I didn't actually introduce myself.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Okay.
While he's looking to share it, I can comment for the public's benefit. We were at the site as a commission in public meeting. And part of the project was to, I don't know, Nicholas, help me out here, but it was to disconnect a water line, essentially going from Hillside Street through the backyard, through the Hillside property to your backyard. And now the water line is coming in off of the driveway. Is that correct?
That is correct. The owner had a water service that ran, like you just said, through the neighbor's property and into his backyard, and then connected to his house that way. And it's since been moved to come down the I guess it would be Hillside Street and right up the driveway through the front of the house. Makes much more sense, much more accessible for the owner, and it alleviates the abutter having to be aggrieved by a neighbor's water service being in their property.
All right, we don't see it, and Steve's still working on that, but I did have a question. As you approach the house with the water line, there was a note there that said that there was a separation between the well and the water gate. You don't know what I'm talking about? There's a reference to a water
separation?
gate.
No, so we had markings to delineate where the water service was coming down the road and cutting across the he's got a little bit of a bridge on his driveway there.
Yes.
But after the water gate's location, we did find the water gate itself. But between the water gate and the house, we don't have an exact location on where it was installed. But what's shown on that plan was the proposed location, and that's where we believe it was actually put.
My question is, can't you find it? I mean, it was just installed, correct?
This was permitted back in, I believe it was 2018. So all of this happened during the whole COVID span, and we did not receive the request for the certificate of compliance until just this year. So I actually don't have a hard date on when that was constructed or installed. But we were, like I said, we were able to get some more water markings out there to find where the main line was and located the water gate, the shutoff valve for that house.
Okay, so, and can you attest that this project was completed in substantial compliance with the order of conditions that was issued?
Yes, part of the project, in addition to the water service, was some tree clearing, a rain garden, and a multitude of plantings of which we did a thorough inspection and found it to be in substantial compliance.
All right, Steve, I don't know if you've been there in a while. I know you were
Uh,
there before.
Yes, I've been there a little over 2 months ago.
All right, and how did it look to you in terms
Looked-
of tree clearing and compliance with the order of conditions?
Looked great to me.
All right. Any questions from commissioners? Any comments, questions from abutters or members of the public? Based upon Steve's observations and the attestation by Nicholas that it is in substantial compliance, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 339 Hillside Street? I'm looking to Tom, Arthur, or somebody.
So
Wendy.
moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Arthur. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion among commission members? Hearing none and seeing no hands raised, I'll take an individual vote here. Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Arthur Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Nicholas. You've got your certificate of compliance.
Thank you very much for your time. I apologize for the technical difficulties earlier.
Not a problem. We have them all the time.
All the time.
Thanks. We're now up to number 4, notice of intent drainage, infrastructure, maintenance and repair program, Blue Hills Reservation. Who is the applicant or the presenter for the applicant?
Maria Johnsonberg from AECom. We're presenting DCR, the applicant, and Tom Bolton from DCR is also on the call.
Thank you very much and welcome Maria and Tom.
Thank you.
Maria, I've made you co-host, if that's okay with you.
Yes, that's wonderful. All right. So, thank you. We are here to discuss some drainage infrastructure improvements that are needed at the Blue Hills Reservation. So this is the project area, and this is the greater reservations. You can see where it is. It's along Canton Ave or Route 138 off of the Green Street parking lot area. Here's an aerial picture of it. So here's the parking and drainage infrastructure is over here.
If I may add, that's the north trailside parking lot.
Yes, thank you. So since this is maintenance of existing drainage structure under the Wetlands Protection Act, it does qualify as a limited project. That said, we are meeting all of the performance standards for resources that are there. But before we delve into that, I wanted to give you a little bit of site history. The retention basin that's here was created in the 1960s, and it's been cleaned out at least 3 times since then, most recently around 2006. And somewhere between 2006 and now, the vegetation in the basin started being predominantly wetland vegetation. So we have delineated this area technically as a bordering vegetated wetland, but the work that's being done is only going to remove the upper layer of sand that's part of the retention basin. It's not going to actually disturb any hydric soils. So it's a weird spot. It's technically man-made, but it's developed some characteristics over time.
There's some small gravel there as well, folks.
Yes. So I'm just gonna go over to the plans to give us a better
Maria,
idea.
while you're doing that, may I ask what the predominant wetland vegetation intrusion is?
The dominant wetland vegetation intrusion. My apologies. That's I don't have that right
Okay.
in front of me. That's a little earlier in the narrative. It is in.
As I remember, is jewelweed was there.
Um, it
Couple of
looks
other
like
herbaceous.
for trees, we have Norway maple and catalpa. For shrubs, it's mostly white pine and glossy buckthorn. And yes, it looks like the herbaceous layer is primarily jewelweed. Sorry, I did not personally delineate it, so.
No, that's okay. Got what I want.
And so, I mean, at least a couple of those are invasive species. It's not a particularly diverse spot or ecologically helpful.
I read that section. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't intruded by Phragmites as well.
No.
Thank you.
So just to give you a little bit clearer idea, these are the existing conditions. This is where the retention basin is. There's an existing concrete weir structure, and the stream that runs through the detention basin goes off alongside the parking lot. There is a little bit of debris removal that's proposed up in that direction, but it's literally just like taking stuff right off the surface of the stream. There isn't excavation involved. So for simplicity, I'm going to focus on what's going on in the detention basin. So as I said, these are the existing conditions. This is the excavation plan. So really, DCR is proposing to remove the upper 6 inches of sediment and sand that has accumulated in here to bring it back to the elevations that it's supposed to be at in order to function correctly. As I said earlier, there is no hydric soil being removed in this. It's really just the sand. The sand is going to be taken, or sediment will be removed, but the sand that belongs in the basin is going to be removed, staged on site, and then put back in when the other junk has been cleared out. I mentioned that there is a stream that sort of runs through here, and when the grading is done, part of reconstructing the inside of the basin is to put down some erosion control fabric along where the stream channel typically is to try to keep it from completely filling in so quickly, to maintain it a bit better. We'll also be revegetating this disturbed area with native wetland seed mix. Below a certain grade, we'll be using an emergent wetland mix, and above that, we'll be using a more typical New England wetland mix. In addition to the cleaning out and regrading of the sediment basin, we're also proposing to replace pieces of the weir. So the existing concrete weir is going to be replaced with some granite slabs, and a portion of the channel is going to be saw cut and just replaced because it's falling apart. And the concrete portion of the weir will also be jet cleaned because there's a bunch of sediment stuck in there. So this is all just to make this existing stormwater feature just function more smoothly so that we can actually manage the stormwater from the reservation and the parking lot the way that it's supposed to.
Gloria, does this water end up at, go underneath the highway and end up in the detention basin on the other side of the highway next to the Montessori school?
I'm not familiar with the Montessori school, but it does go after it goes through the weir structure. It does go under 138.
And the answer,
I think it does, John. I think that's correct.
I think so. Okay.
it does, and then it drops down on the Wakefield property from the basin.
And do we, just jurisdictionally, because I know we did some work with that detention basin a few years ago, but I thought that was Mass Highway that had that. So are we shifting from DCR to Mass Highway in terms of responsibility to maintain?
I think that's a question for Tom Bolton to answer. I think that the structure itself is on the reservation, which is DCR land. But
That's correct. This 4 bay sediment basin is on DCR property. MassDOT that you make Chairman, you may be thinking of a different sediment 4 bay area that MassDOT might have cleaned out. It wasn't this one.
Oh, no, oh, absolutely. It's on the other side of the highway.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's that's so the one that this one flows into, that is a MassDOT asset, I believe.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
so I think that I actually covered the general points that I wanted to make. So if the commission has any questions or pieces that you'd like to hear more detail about, please go ahead.
I have a comment.
Tom, have you walked it? I think the commission walked this a couple of years ago.
I know it myself. Do you have a plan that shows the walkway upstream a little bit where there's a bridge over it?
Yes,
I thought I saw a plan like that.
So this is the bigger plan. So I was focusing on this area because this is where most of the heavy lifting is going on. But this is the stream that goes up here that I think you're asking about with the little bridges.
Yeah, there's a footbridge up slope of where you're working. Do you know where that bridge is exactly on here?
Are we talking about the footbridge that goes up to the Trailside Museum, or a small?
It goes to the parking lot, and it crosses from the parking lot to the so-called border path. So, if you're looking at this plan, it would go from the bottom toward the top and then curve left. I didn't see it on one of these plans.
The only bridge that I'm aware of would be right behind the bathrooms that you're looking at.
No, this is down at this end. Because I've come out of the reservation a million times and cut over to the parking lot on this trail, coming down the border path. And just to the point you can sort of see the parking lot, you can cut over and step over this brook on a little bridge, but you're not familiar with it? It's on one of these plans.
Tom, it's shown on this plan, on the left-hand side of the plan. Okay, I know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
Where?
That's on the left. Yes, so that's downstream of the four.
Oh, right here.
Yeah,
that's correct.
You're right. I'm sorry. I thought it was the other side. I just want to point out, if you walk up that path toward the observatory road, it's very eroded and a lot of water breaks out there. Have you noticed that? A lot of water comes down that slope.
Comes down Observatory Road. Yes, so there's a paved swale that dumps into the sediment basin that's coming from.
It also breaks out of the ground too. and a lot of tree roots are exposed because material has been carried away, and it breaks out. And it might be because there's a pipe that leaks. You know, there's a big tank up the road there, presumably has infrastructure, piping associated with it. Do you know where that piping is?
No, I don't. What kind of piping did you say? Broke out.
Well, you know, there's a pressure tank if you go
Oh,
up the Observatory Road. Yeah, there's an enormous tank in the
yes,
woods.
I am aware of that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't believe that there's been any water, you know, any flows from domestic water or that tank. To my knowledge, anyway, I've never been told that
all
by
right.
Milton.
Well, just the place I pointed out, everybody knows the water comes out of the ground there and washes the trail away. Everybody uses that area. So I'm just wondering how it might affect your plan. It seems like it won't in any particular way, but could you tell me where you think all the debris is coming from that's getting into your system?
Upstream, so it's coming from the brook and it's coming from the pond. This stream originates from the man-made pond in front of
Yes, the pond.
the Prehistoric
Yes.
Museum. And sheet flow from the parking lot area too, I would think.
Yeah, I would agree that parking lot gets sanded sometimes and might contribute sand.
There's an extremely lot of sheet flow that comes from down the mountain during rainstorms too. You know, only
Yes.
during rainstorms. That's probably washing, you know, silt and debris down to the brook that runs parallel with the parking lot that eventually ends up in the sediment basin.
Yeah,
So after thinking about it a little further, I think that's probably the major contributor to most of the sediments coming into this basin.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you're getting after this, and it seems to me you're doing it appropriately.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from commissioners? About it, members of the public? And
I
Steve,
just
you'll have
wanted to compliment staff, if I may, Mr. Chairman, on the quality of preparation.
Good.
Very
thank-
helpful.
Well said, thank you.
John,
just,
I'm happy
go
to
ahead.
see this being done, okay?
You what?
I'm happy to see it being done.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Now, the only question I've got remaining is that when we issue an order of conditions, we do have standard conditions to refuel and store hydraulic equipment outside of our jurisdiction. You've got plenty of parking space there. Tom, do you think that that's an issue, or Maria?
We have a designated laydown area within the plan set. We could certainly find, you know, it's mainly there's an entrance and an exit to that parking lot, and it's mainly to the, I guess, the north end side of the parking lot. We were going to fence off an area there. That's not an issue, to answer your question. You know, I'm just doing it the long way. We
Okay.
can certainly move. We can certainly make sure that to keep the equipment outside the buffer zone.
Perfect. That's great. Well, with that, is there a motion to approve the order of conditions? With our boilerplate standard conditions? Wendy, is
moved,
there a
John.
motion?
Yes. So moved.
Is there a second to Wendy's motion?
Second.
I'll second.
I think we get 2 seconds. Perfect. Any discussion? Hearing none. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I, John Kieran, vote yes as well. So you've got a unanimous vote. You've got your order of conditions with the standard conditions, and thank you very much for your presentation and for the project.
Thank you. Thank you for your time,
Thank
All
you.
right.
Chairman and
All right,
committee
good
members.
night all. Next, we have number 5 on the agenda, request for determination of applicability. This is the MBTA Mattapan Station Program, Milton Station Sloped Walkway. Do we have a presenter with us tonight?
Yes, this is Jeremy Fontaine from MBTA.
Jerry, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here with two other members as well, Mike Turgeon and David Whitman. So this project, like you mentioned, is the Milton Sloped Walkway, and this is an ADA accessible means of access to the MBTA Milton Station from Adams Street. And I will let the consulting team, Mike Turgeon, present. I think he has provided the commission with a presentation to share.
Thank you.
I've just
Steve,
made
if you
Mike
can-
co-host.
Thank you. So
Is it working?
there we go.
Good.
I think, well, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Jeremy. I will start with the page 18, which is an aerial photograph of the site. And kind of go over the existing conditions. So this is Adams Street. And this is the Neponset River here. And this is the extra space storage facility at 2 Adams Street. The MBTA Milton Station platform is here. And this is the Neponset River, the Neponset Trail. This is the bridge over the railroad, the tracks and the trail. Then there's a sidewalk here and a kind of an island here. The parking lot for extra space. There's catch basins here. And along the river, there's a concrete curb and a grassy area, and then a brick walkway and a fence. And over here along the sidewalk, there's a fence and a grassy area, and then a granite retaining wall. And this parking lot has quite a bit of topography to it. This is the low point is in here. It rises up to a point in this area, then drops back down. And the area where we're building where we would like to build the walkway is in this marked out by this red polygon. And so any water from here would drain towards the catch basins rather than towards the river. I think now I'll switch to the proposed conditions. So this is Adams Street here, the tracks, the platform, the trail with the access point to the parking lot. And over here you have the sidewalk. The river is over here. And then the granite wall comes down along this line here. The proposed project is to do a saw cut in this area, remove the pavement, and then install an 8-foot wide ADA accessible access sloped walkway that comes off the sidewalk, comes down here in a gentle slope. There's a landing here along the tracks and the rail in the Neponset Trail. and then comes out over here to the onto the trail and then the platform. The catch basins that I was talking about are located here and here. The area, there's a stormwater P-stone diaphragm being installed along the edge of the walkway. So this grassy area will remain. Then between, and there's an existing fence here. Between the fence and the, well, no, between the wall and the walkway, it'll be planted with grasses and like a wildflower mix. And then over here in this vicinity, right along the walkway would be the grass and wildflower mix. And then adjacent to that, down slope a little bit, you would have a shrub mix. And then there's also 5 trees proposed to be planted in here. And there's also plantings proposed down here. We're going to be installing lighting. It's on another plan, but I'll go to the, there's lighting and cameras being installed, and the cable will come along a platform on this side and go along the face of the bridge over the tracks, then onto the site, and then that will be used to power and for the communications associated with the cameras and the lighting. There's signage proposed, an electrical box, a bench, and I believe mostly the signs, the cameras, the new striping for the new parking, all that I guess would be exempt. And I guess I should have pointed out, this is the 100-year buffer zone. So some of the work is within the 100-year buffer zone, and then this is the 200-foot riverfront area. So a majority of the work is in the riverfront area.
Who owns that land?
Pardon me?
Who owns the land you're working on?
I'm having trouble hearing.
I'm sorry, I asked who owns the land the project is sited on?
Dave, can you hear him?
Yes, I can hear him. David Whitman from Jacobs Engineering. So this property is owned by Extra Space Storage, and the MBTA is getting a permanent easement for the walkway portion of this project. The restriping is going to be to the benefit of Extra Space Storage. But it will be an MBTA owned and maintained area.
Thank you.
I just have a question that I should know the answer, but I don't. What is the percent of grade that would comply with the ADA requirements for wheelchair access?
So this is a sloped walkway designed at less than 4.5% to be less than the 5%. Anything above 5% is deemed a ramp, and anything below 5% is deemed a sloped walkway. And we're keeping this designed and built as a sloped walkway, so it's ADA compliant.
Perfect, thank you. And how do you get across the tracks to go the other way, the other direction?
So currently, this is the existing condition of you have to cross the deposit trail and go to the outbound platform, and then there was a crossing to the inbound platform. So this is a project that's designed to help improve the future Milton Station improvements that are coming.
Understood, but that will tie into the ramp that will get wheelchair access across the tracks to go inbound, correct?
Yes, yeah. The access right now from the Ponset Trail from the outbound to the inbound tracks is compliant.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Done. It's not clear to me based on what's in our packet and what you've described, if there's any sort of distinct delineation between the access ramp and the rest of the paved area that's currently a parking and traffic area.
So there'll be plantings and a railing.
A railing, okay.
So let me go to the planting. There's a railing that will go along the eastern side, or the granite wall is here, and then there'll be a railing on the far side, comes down along here, and then there's plantings between the railing and the parking area, and a curb as well, a concrete curb.
Is there a wall on both sides of the ramp, or I thought there was just a wall on the side closest to
There's an existing wall up here.
Yeah.
The granite wall, and then there'll be a railing, and then this area here is graded down to a curb. So I will show the grading plan. Graded down, so there's no wall.
Yeah. So Mike, if you go to the next plan to the section, it might help. So our intention is to have a 2-to-1 side slope all the way from the walkway down to the parking lot, and a pedestrian handrail on that side of the walkway itself. So one of the big benefit, and so the whole side slope will be a vegetated side slope with plantings and grasses and things.
Okay.
And the big benefit of this is we're reducing the impervious amount of material in the parking lot by over 1,700 square feet.
Yeah, that's great. It is a sea of asphalt at the moment.
Exactly. And this is going to be a big improvement on that.
And you said that you're going to be putting in how many trees?
5 trees. There's a on the planting plan, there's a list. So we have 5 maple, 16 chokeberry, 46 sweet fern, 12 shrubby cinquefoil, 16 fragrant sumac, and 166 Bar Harbor juniper. And the grass mix is a prairie drop seed, and then the flower mix includes asters, black-eyed Susan, happy returns, daylily, and yarrow.
Okay. Right?
That's on this sheet, which is the landscape plan, and it's the sheet, it's page 40 of 42 in the PDF. So it's 2 sheets in from the end.
So again, to kind of jump back in, reiterate, the big improvement of this is we're reducing the impervious material by a pretty substantial amount, and we're, you know, pretty excited about that, to be able to help reduce runoff and things like that in this area.
Does anyone know where those catch basins discharge to?
That I do not know. I'm sorry. I'm not sure, Mike, if you know.
You want to guess,
I'm not
Tom?
sure. We are proposing silt sacks in both of them, but I'm not sure where they go to.
I don't know myself. I guess they're associated with the old mill buildings, and maybe they go under them to the river. I don't know.
All right,
Well,
that's actually, you know, Tom, apropos of your comment, that's exactly where the smelt hatchery is. Right at the bend of the river. So that's a pretty sensitive area. So make sure you put those silt socks in there. That's a big deal for us.
Yeah, and again, I think the benefit of this is the improvement overall is the reduction of runoff to those catch basins in the end condition, you know, when we're done with construction.
Yes, I agree. But one thing occurs to me is, if you had a wheelchair today coming down Adams Street, could it go in the driveway and then go over to the T station through the parking lot?
It can. So there's a DCR easement that runs through the parking lot to the station. It's
And you
not
see
ADA
many people walking to the station that way now.
Oh,
Many
yeah.
people access it
Right.
that way.
Right, but the access currently is not ADA compliant. So this whole project is to create an accessible path from Adams Street for someone who needs that additional help to get to the station.
Yeah, could you tell us why coming in the driveway isn't ADA compliant?
It's a driveway. There's a DCR easement. I'm not sure the semantics of how that DCR easement got installed, but there is that easement that allows pedestrians access from Adams Street to the station. But again, the semantics behind where that came from or how that was instituted, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. I see Ned has raised his hand.
Yeah, Ned, comment, question?
Yeah, Ned Corcoran. In 2007 and 8, I represented Extra Space Storage in the development of this site. And that easement to cross the parking lot was a component of the approvals that were reached through the state process with DEP and with the town. We also opened the gate from the parking lot to the shared use path and to provide access directly to the station from Adams Street. Formerly, you would have had to come down the stairs that are no longer operable or come around down onto Wharf Street to access the station. So that one of the public benefits that was provided for in that permitting process was the public access and the easement grant to DCR for the purpose of access to the station. I don't know. I think it was determined to be compliant enough. I don't think that I don't recall anything being done specifically with ADA or the Architectural Access Board at the time.
Ned, I recall that. As a matter of fact, there was a permit process, and I think there was even a liquor license proposal before the town meeting back at that time. But isn't this area where the ramp is going exactly where the building was proposed back
Yes.
in 2007?
Yes, we had fully approved building, first floor restaurant and retail, 14 condominiums up above, 2 levels of parking below, with the retail and the restaurant at the level of the sidewalk on Adams Street. That was never built. The economy turned in 2008, 2009, and ultimately the building permit has lapsed. I think there's been effort over time to sort of reconsider whether that building would be, they pursue redevelopment of that building. But at this point, I don't know whether Extra Space has any specific plans for that. And I'm not privy to, at this point, to discussions between the MBTA and Extra Space with respect to easement acquisition along this area.
Understood. All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions from abutters, members of the public? And certainly for commission members? Bill Gallagher, you got your hand raised.
Yes, I walk that pathway almost daily and just look at the aesthetic part of this project. It would certainly enhance the area and we call it the psychological enjoyment of walking, as far as the planting vegetation, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand the environmental issue that it does raise, but I'm focusing on the appearance, and it's superb, and certainly would enhance my daily walk down there. So thank you.
Thanks, Bill, for your insight. All right, any other questions? I can't see the whole screen, so and Steve, you might be able to see if there are any other hands raised. I don't
Does
see.
not appear, so sorry. Wendy?
Yes, I have another question or comment. I'm wondering if it's possible to increase the number of trees. And possibly if we could maybe utilize some of the and I'm blanking on the actual name, but the boxes that go in the base of trees in urban environments for treating the stormwater. What are those called?
Filter box?
Yes, filter boxes. Yeah. Right. I mean, just because it is such a sensitive area that, like we were talking about, and as we said, it is literally a sea of asphalt, and there's going to be a lot of cars still going through there. I see that there's some parking delineated right along the walkway now. I think it would be a great opportunity for us to capture and treat some of that stormwater runoff.
What do you think, Mike? That sounds like a
Dave,
pretty good idea,
Dave,
and I don't think it's. Go ahead.
I think Dave has a response.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we appreciate the appreciation for the project. The intention of this walkway is we have a BMP stormwater system located along the right-hand side of the walkway. So all the walkway drainage will be directed towards the stormwater BMP, which will collect and recharge water. So there's no other stormwater reclamation that's needed. We have a specific number of trees. There's only so much space in there to actually put plantings as large as trees. So we have a lot of ground cover. We have a lot of things that will recapture a lot of the stormwater. It's again the biggest factor of this project is the reduction of impervious material in this area, that we are reducing that discharge. So
I think there's a safety component too. in placing the walkway and separating it from the parking area.
Correct.
And
That's right,
just
Mike.
so
So right
you-
now,
you're getting people, even walkers are now, not subjected to people moving around in the parking lot.
right, right. So the current access easement goes through the parking lot. This is a protected pedestrian walkway. That'll benefit everyone. Pretty much all the pedestrians who go into the station.
Can I ask you a question? It's at the risk of sounding like a form over substance guy. I think it sounds like a great project, but I'm curious as to why it's an RDA and not a notice of intent.
I think
Is
it
there
was
any
because
rationale behind that?
our rationale was that it's in the riverfront area. It's all basically redevelopment and in an area where nothing's really flowing towards the river. So the chances for impacts are pretty minimal. We can place the silt sacks in the catch basins, and with a saw cut, you're not going to have a lot of soil moving around on the site. I mean, a paved surface can be swept and kept clean to prevent materials from getting to the catch basins. And I guess it's a lot of it, the landscaping portion of it, the signage, the lighting, all those issues, all those things are pretty much exempt activities. So that's why we thought it was appropriate to do an RDA.
And if I can,
we think that
if I can,
we think that it's a situation where the -2 determination is appropriate.
I get you, but for all the reasons you stated, I think it should be a notice of intent. But again, it's a good project, so I'm just curious as to how we get there. But you're right, it would have to be a negative determination with conditions. Because if we said positive, it would be a notice of intent. And we're not trying to slow it down because it sounds like a good idea. Unless anybody thinks otherwise on the commission. But I'm willing to consider it as an RDA. But just so everybody knows, it would require a negative determination, and then we could add the conditions for the decision, which would include all of the erosion controls that are important, because we all know where that water's going. It's going right into the river, and that's probably the most sensitive area in the entire length of the Ponce River. So we want to be very careful with that. And the other thing is that you may have heard it from some of the other discussions tonight, but we do have regular conditions that we put out. I'm only hesitating because I always call them boilerplate, but they're standard conditions, and that would be refueling and storage of the power equipment, especially the hydraulic lines. And if you're using, backhoes and things like that with lots of hydraulic, they're always popping. So we need some assurances of spill control plans, and we want them stored away. And this is a particularly sensitive area with the drainage where it is, because that sea of macadam flows right to those catch basins. And if we've got a couple of bobcats sitting and they pop some hoses, that's exactly where the water's going to go, right into that smelt hatchery. So we want to be very careful about that, and I think that's reasonable. I'm sure the MBTA would be delighted to comply with those standard conditions.
And I think we can add some language in our specifications to make sure that your erosion control standards are adhered to.
All right. Well, that would certainly be part of the negative determination for an RDA. Any other thoughts or comments on that issue or any other issues, actually, from commission members? No, hearing none. Any other thoughts, comments, questions before we move on to a motion to issue? And I think I think there's a general consensus of support here for a negative determination with at least the conditions that I mentioned in terms of erosion control, spill control, storage outside of our jurisdiction, and certainly refueling outside of our jurisdiction. Other than those, are there any other suggested conditions for a negative determination? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue a negative determination with the additional special conditions?
I'll move that we issue the negative determination.
All right, is there a second to that?
I second it, John.
All right, thank you. Any discussion from commission members? Hearing none, take a individual vote. Arthur, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Tom Palmer?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
And I, John Kiernan, vote yes as well. So that's unanimous negative determination with the specific special conditions mentioned. Thank you very much, all. It sounds like a good project.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Night.
Next on the agenda is notice of intent, 38 Barton's Lane.
Good evening, John. Ned Corcoran, for the record, on behalf of Paul and Suzanne Barry, who are the owners of property at 38 Barton's Lane. This is sort of the second piece of some relief that I am securing for the Barrys. The first was a variance to allow modification to the dwelling that exists at 38 Barton's Lane, area that was outside of the Concom's jurisdiction, area towards the front. The building is now under complete renovation, basically a big gut rehab with renovation, and work is ongoing. I think Steve has visited the site and seen that there's good solid erosion control in the backyard between the work and the wetland. We filed a notice of intent, and included in that notice of intent is a approval, I think, of the wetland delineation that was done a couple of years ago by Russ Waldron. So I think the first thing for me to do is ask Russ to briefly describe the delineation. It strikes me that the commission would require a site walk to approve the delineation and issue a notice of intent. But Russ, if you could describe the delineation, and then I'll hand it to Karen Gosselin, who is a landscape architect, who will describe the work that's proposed within the 100-foot setback from the wetland.
Sure thing. Russ Waldron here from Applied Ecological Sciences. So I flagged the property a year ago, October, and it's a very short delineation of a short section of BEW. I think I made 4 flags, and also a very short section of a stream that flows down through the wetland. As I recall, I believe the wetland edge is very close to the edge of the lawn. As I was looking back at my data sheets that I did, and I didn't do soils, and I believe that, as I recall, that was the reason I didn't bother looking at the soils, because it was just lawn on one side and the forested wetland on the other. So the break was pretty obvious. And beyond that, it was, it's straightforward delineation, no big surprises or challenges to it.
So we submitted this plan, which shows the 4 flags along the wetland with the 25-foot line and the 100-foot edge of jurisdiction. I'll stop sharing this unless you have questions. Would note that within the scope of the work, there is an old wooden boardwalk within the wetland that feeds from the lawn towards the bank that is in really, really poor condition, and the Barrys seek permission to remove that. We remove it by hand, not using any tools within the wetland, mechanical tools within the wetland, and a bench which is just within the edge of wetland itself. They plan to remove that as well, and you'll see that on the sidewalk. So unless you have further questions for Russ, I'll stop sharing and then produce the landscape plan. It was recently modified to address the question that Steve had regarding native species versus non-native species for plantings within the 100-foot jurisdictional area.
Ned, before you move on.
Yep.
Just a question about the in the patio. What's the net increase in impervious surface?
That's a good question, because I think currently there is no impervious where the patio is going. But let me share again and pull up that. Let's see. I need to do one other thing first. You all see that?
Yes, that's perfect. Thanks.
So again, the edge of wetland is here. The 25-foot no disturb is here, and you notice that there's a silt proposed for the control runoff, and then the 100-foot is here. So this patio area and portion of this patio area is all new, and is not currently doesn't currently exist. This is all lawn at the moment. And there's a plan to remove a portion of the existing shed. This shed is sort of in two pieces. One is on a foundation that is solid, and the second portion that was added sometime later, that's on cinder block that is not solid, and that portion is within the 25-foot, and the plan is to remove that and then to install these raised planter area here. And so with that, I can turn it to Karen Gosselin. She may have more specific in terms of square footage and percentages. Karen?
Hi.
Thank you.
So my name is Karen Goslin from CMG Design. And yes, so in the backyard within the 100-foot buffer, there are all existing beds. We just added more native plants to the backyard area. And then also along the patio is more native plants. Along the other planting area takes place outside the 100-foot line, and that is around the perimeter of the front and the side of the house. There is an existing asphalt walkway that leads from the side to the front that will be removed. And grass will be placed down the side of the house with stepping stones to make a more pervious area for that. So basically you'll come out of the house and step down onto one platform for the patio that will be 12 feet wide. And then a few more steps down to the second level down to a 15-foot wide patio. So what that does is when you step down onto the grass, it doesn't change any of the grading that's existing for the grass. So the only disruption within that area for the construction would just be to the patio. So I think the square footage, I was just calculating that out now, is I think under 600 square feet for the patio area.
And is there any calculation of runoff from that 600? I know you said less than 600 square feet.
I did not calculate out the runoff on that. It should be pretty minimal, but that I did not calculate.
Okay.
And the reason for doing the two platforms, like I said, the two patio areas was so you can step down onto the grass area with minimal grading at all.
Understood. I just didn't know if it was graded in such a way that, you know, the water is going to end up in one particular locus if they both sheet flow off to a particular area. It's not it shouldn't be a big problem. because there are ways to, accommodate that if it did go to a particular area to prevent erosion, whether it's a Caltech chamber and for the homeowners, this is not an expensive proposition, but see, I just don't know what the elevation changes are there. I just want to make sure that this doesn't create erosion somewhere else on your property.
So I know like for the patio will be like a 2% slope, probably straight down away from the house. On both patios. So it would drain onto the grass and the planting beds.
Understood. All right, well, we've got a wetlands delineation. How does this coming Saturday, because I know we're getting close to the holiday season here, so is this Saturday doable for anybody, everybody?
Yeah, it's fine. Fine with me.
Yeah, I can do it.
All right,
Fortunately,
Wendy?
I'm going to be out of town this weekend, John.
Okay. We've got some missing members here, but what about Arthur? Arthur, you may be on mute.
I think I can do it, Mr. Chairman.
You can, okay, so that's three of us, 3 out of the 4, and we've got Hans, Todd, and Ingrid to talk to. So why don't we tentatively, because otherwise we'd kick it over. Let me back up and ask, when do you plan on, if you get your order from us, when do you plan on construction? Is this now or is it next spring sometime?
No, it's spring at the earliest. The house is under construction now, and that has some months to go. So if it had to go to January, I think it'd be fine.
Okay, well, let's try to get it done this Saturday. I'd like to have a quorum if possible, so we'll have to do it right away. So Philip, we'll have to do an agenda or a notice for this Saturday, and I know we're close on time. But if we could announce it tomorrow, we'd be in compliance with the open meeting law. So let's do it, and then if we can't get a quorum, we can either cancel a site walk or use those that show up as a subcommittee, but any kind of a vote would have to go to the January meeting. So I guess what I'm saying is that let's announce it as a meeting for this Saturday at 8:30 at your home at 38 Barton's Lane. And it shouldn't take long. If we can get a quorum, great. If not, we'd have to kick the vote to January.
Do you feel like
All
you
right.
would need to sort of continue the hearing also to the January hearing just to protect the open meeting?
Yes, please. Yeah, that's a good point, Ned. Thank you. All right, so Philip, if you're taking notes on that, that's important that we have the assent of the applicant to go to January, but we'll try to get it done this Saturday if we get the quorum.
That'd be great.
Okay, I'll post it in the morning.
Yeah, perfect. All right, any other
And
questions
John-
from commissioners?
John, this is Steve. I think I can make it as well on Saturday.
You can. All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't ask because you're an
Okay.
important component. All right, thank you. So any other questions, comments from commissioners? Other abutters or members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? I don't see or hear anything, so hopefully we'll see you at 8:30 at your house, Mr. and Ms. Barry, on this coming Saturday, okay?
Very good.
Terrific.
Perfect, all right. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is notice of intent, 1365 Canton Avenue.
8:30 Saturday.
Who is presenting on this one?
Brendan Sullivan with Merrill Associates, representing the owner, Sabi Torkey of 1365 Canton Ave.
And Brendan, I just made you co-host.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve.
Sure. Perfect.
So hopefully you can see my plan up there now.
Yes.
So if you remember, there is an existing order of conditions out for this site for some work done in the back of the property. This is 1365 Canton Ave. It's on the north side of Canton Ave. single-family home, currently under construction. There's some off-site wetland resource areas, BVW, and also a brook in the back, which is also a river. So we have some buffer zones and riverfront areas on the lot. What this component of the project is for the repair or for the construction of a new septic system. So we did some test pits out in the rear of the property, found some decent materials. So we're proposing a infiltration, subsurface infiltration field for the septic system. In this area here, the system itself, the overdig, is approximately 168 feet from the riverfront, from the river off property. We are outside of the 100-foot buffer. And we did add this red line here is an additional siltation controls for the construction of septic system. We have a septic tank that just kind of crosses the 200-foot buffer. It's positioned there because the existing pipe coming out of the house and setbacks that we need to require for the foundation. It goes for gravity from the septic tank into the D box and into the infiltration chambers. And that is really about it.
Looks good, John.
Yeah, and for the public's benefit, we've been here quite often, and just in the last 12 to 18 months. Does anybody feel a need for a site walk?
No,
I do not, but someone might. This is the area where we issued the order conditions for the movement of the wall dividing the properties and the grading, because there were significant grading changes.
Right, and that's happening down the northwest corner of the property, the upper left-hand corner of the property.
Has that already happened?
No, I don't believe it has. I don't believe any of the site work has happened on site. He's mainly consisting. I think he's trying to get the house kind of weather tight, which it may be at this point. I think he's just working on the interior now. Probably looking at maybe I'm thinking maybe a spring project for the landscaping and stuff like that.
All right, well, what's the consensus? We're going to be out anyway Saturday. Does anybody want to stop by and look at it? Tom and Arthur, you're the only ones I know you're going to be there. What do you think?
I don't have to see it, but I do have a question.
Sure.
If for some reason this lot wasn't conducive to septic, would there have been an option to connect to a sewer pipe in the road out front?
No, from what I understand, we've contacted the sewer department. The sewer main is greater than 500 feet away. Otherwise, we would be obligated to tie into the sewer. So the sewer is more than 500 feet up the street. Unfortunately, I was unaware that it was on septic, believe it or not, when we first started this project. It wasn't until we were through some of the permitting process that Sabri approached me and said we need a new septic system, and I was surprised that he was on septic. So, but no, the sewer is it dead ends at either side of Canton Ave, more than 500 feet away.
I see. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I'd just like to remark that it's better for the groundwater in general if you treat your septic on your own lot. So, yeah, I think I won't have any trouble approving this project.
Right. Arthur, Wendy?
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
No additional comments. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I certainly don't need, because I think we've seen it at least 3 times within recent history for the public's benefit. So we know the area pretty well, and the septic system. My memory is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's 300 feet. That if you're within 300 feet, you must tie in.
I thought it was 5, but 3 could be maybe a repair or something. I'm not exactly sure.
Right. But you're more than 5?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
All right, understood. Well, with that, I'm okay with the notice of a debt with, usual conditions. And it is at the left-hand side in the back there. That is a pretty sensitive area. Of
Yes.
Balsam Brook, and we've got, that's Mr. Vu's property in back there, correct?
Yes. In the
Right,
rear,
so-
at the rear of that, yeah, but
So
the other.
we've been on both sides of that property line several times in the last few years. So that the erosion controls will be a big issue for us as a special condition, and certainly the storage of the equipment outside of our jurisdiction and refueling, obviously, outside of our jurisdiction.
Sure.
But with those special conditions and the erosion controls, is there a motion to approve the application for notice of intent for the proposed septic installation?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any discussion? Hearing none, individual votes. Arthur Doyle,
Yes.
Tom Palmer,
Yes.
Wendy Gapo. I'm sorry, Wendy, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And John Kiernan is a yes as well. So you have your order conditions.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. 8 on the agenda is approval of Conservation Commission meeting minutes. I read the April 11th. Well, let me ask this: did everybody read them all? Honestly,
I did, and I noticed that the May only refers to the fact that we didn't meet and refers us to another date for the actual business. Did you notice that?
No, I
Did you
didn't.
read
No,
this?
I didn't. I read the April, but I did not read the May, so I apologize for that.
Yeah, well, it does seem like May is sort of missing, because all May says is, we didn't meet because of town meeting.
Yeah, but
We
we
just-
pushed it, didn't we push it a week?
Yeah, but then there's no minutes for the subsequent date. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do.
It's-
So that is,
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
These were the ones that were asked by the law office of from Highland Street. There's a
Dan Hill,
paralegal,
sure, on Highland Street.
paralegal that asked for these ones specifically.
All right, as I
know,
look
Tom,
through
I
them,
know there's another one for the 16th, but they didn't ask for that, so I didn't include it.
I gotcha. All right.
Well,
Yeah.
if he's looking for that for the appellate record, we should probably do that the 16th, because I know it was moved. I know what they're looking for.
Right.
And it would be the 16th as opposed to the 9th because of the annual town meeting. So why don't we, and I apologize, I only read the April, but that's fine. So if everybody else read it, we could vote on that. But I prefer to get to the actual May one, because I think that's what he's looking for.
Okay.
So if we could kick that, we could even put it on the agenda for this Saturday. If you can,
Okay, perfect.
if you can find those minutes. And then,
Yep, no problem.
all right, does that sound acceptable?
Yes.
All
Can
right,
I
what
email the
about
minutes
voting?
as opposed to deliver, or do you want them delivered?
No, you can do it on.
Email's good for me.
Email's good for me.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll just email them then. Thank you.
Does anybody, if everybody read the April one, we can vote on that one.
Yes.
Or do you want- Yes, Tom, Wendy, you can vote on this?
Yes.
All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes, draft minutes, make them actual minutes from April 11th, 2023? Arthur?
Yes.
Tom, aye. Wendy, aye.
Aye.
John Kiernan, aye. Was set on April, and then we'll put the May and June over until Saturday, if we can do it on Saturday. All right, and then if you can add, Philip, the actual date, the minutes for May 16th, I think it was. Is that
Right,
correct?
so you want, I'll email the agenda and the May 16th and June 13th.
Yes, perfect. All right, that's good. Which takes us until additional business. Number 9, and what do we have for additional business? Steve?
John, this is Steve. I'd like to call Kelly Cardoza at 999 Randolph Ave, Wellston Golf Club.
That's great, thanks. Kelly, you here?
Yeah,
Welcome as always.
thank you.
Hi, Kelly.
Kelly, thank you for those of you online who are here.
Kelly, I'm having a hard time hearing. I don't know if others are.
I am as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for letting me speak with you this evening. We're hoping for just getting some clarification on the order that you issued relative to the October meeting for hydro rate test.
Kelly, I'm having a hard time. It sounds like you're underwater. That's the
Me too.
version I'm getting.
Okay. Go on and see.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Back on
Sorry
Earth.
about that.
Good.
So again, thank you for letting me speak with you this evening. We're hoping for some clarification on the order that was issued in October for hydro raking at Wollaston. As I'm sure you remember, we were seeking to add hydro raking as one more option for management of the invasive vegetation in Russell Pond. There's been a long-standing approval for pesticide use, and at the request of this commission, the club investigated other alternatives. So there were a couple of things that we had asked for. One is for it to be for 5 years, and that was in both writing and also during the hearing in October. And so we'd still like that to be reflected in the order with the agreement that we would go ahead and provide an annual report. And I believe the commission voted in favor to do that, but the order didn't reflect it.
All right, I agree with you, Kelly, on that.
Okay.
We
So
did talk about the number of years and the compromise was we'd get annual reports.
Okay, so the second thing was regarding the fueling of the equipment, and you didn't want us refueling the equipment in the water, and I understood that, so we agreed to go ahead and only refuel that on land. And there was actually a statement made that on land, if not feasible to remove from the jurisdictional area, and that was made by one of the commissioners while we were speaking. And so we're okay with refueling, not on the water, and for two reasons. One is that the barge holds 40 gallons of fuel and it only uses 10 gallons a day, so that takes care of 4 days. And the other is, if any of you are boaters, you'll know that there's a red plastic tank that you fill off your boat, and then you take it on, and there's a quick connect hose that you're able to do that. So there's a quick connect hose that they'll be able to connect into the system on the barge, and there's no fuel that passes through that tube until the connection has already been made appropriately. So that's not fueling on the water is acceptable. The problem with the order or the next issue is that there was a condition that wasn't expected, and that was that the barge would need to be removed from the water every day at the end of work. It takes about 45 minutes or so to an hour. What they would do is back the pickup truck down with a trailer, load the barge onto it, secure it properly so that you can drive away safely, and drive it up there. So that's just about 20% of the time that they're paying for is to get the barge out of the water each time. And Solitude has worked for many, many years for the state in public water supplies, in drinking water sources. They work regularly for DCR, and they've never been asked to remove the barge from the water while they're working. And the club feels like this is an expensive option for them. It's much more expensive than using pesticides, but they decided it was the right thing to do. But we're really looking at a 20% increase in cost if they want to do the same amount of work. And so I believe that the plans that we provided with you were consistent with the idea that the barge would stay in the water. And I understood, and if it was my misunderstanding, then I apologize, that when we were talking about keeping the equipment out of your jurisdictional area, it would be the land-based equipment, the trucks, the tractor with the trailer behind it, that kind of stuff, but that the barge would remain in the water, similar to the approval that you issued in 2009, where the barge remained in the water for the hydro raking at Pond 6 at Wollaston. So in addition to these things, and these really are the primary things, there are a number of other issues that are either missing or incorrect. And the issuance date is missing, the scale of the plans is incorrect, and the DEP file number changes throughout the document. So I would just ask that those things be corrected when the order is reissued.
Let me ask you this, because my understanding of what we voted on was, as always, we have standard or boilerplate conditions. One of them is no storage overnight in our jurisdiction and no refueling in our jurisdiction. And my understanding of the vote that I took was based on that, but I do acknowledge that we had a discussion that you didn't have to remove the barge all the way to the, I don't know what you call it, I won't call
Maintenance
it the
facility.
Maintenance facility. That's it. You didn't have to go that far, and I thought that was the compromise we made on that standard condition. Having said that, let me ask you this: in addition to the 40 gallons of fuel, are there hydraulic arms or mechanisms on this hydro rake machine? In addition, from the fuel that runs the motor, what about the hydraulic pistons?
There is a hydraulic fuel, and it's a biodegradable, biological-based fuel. It's not a petroleum product. That's this equipment. You know, Solitude says when they work for the state doesn't make them do this in drinking water sources.
Well, the way that, without reference to the wrong file number or the issuance date, my vote was based upon it coming out of the water. That was my thinking at the time, and I thought that was, we actually had a compromise as to how far it had to go. So my position is that you'd need to file a motion for a revision, and we have a formal vote for the public's benefit. We voted on this, it's issued, it's signed, it's in the public record. So if we're going to change it, we need to have two votes. One is that you'd have to, ask us to revise it, and we'd have a first vote on whether or not it was a significant or insignificant revision. If it's an insignificant revision, then we can vote on that revision. If it's a significant revision, then you'd have to file another notice of intent. And I'm not suggesting it would be the latter. I'm suggesting this would be the former, so that we'd have, but we still have to have two votes to change an existing order that we've all signed, or at least some of us signed.
So the order that I have in front of me says that any refueling would only be done away from the pond at the site of the equipment storage facility currently utilized by the golf club. And I went through and I watched the video, and I think that there was a clear statement that says on land, if not feasible to remove from the jurisdictional area. And I don't think that's accurately reflected in here. So I know the club is really on the fence about how they should proceed. But I would ask that you issue the order with that language in it. And then if necessary, I expected Mr. Grandin to be here tonight, and I can't explain to you why he's not, because Not long ago, he said he was going to be. So, because he wanted to speak with
Well,
you.
Kelly, don't fault him because we couldn't vote on it anyway. It's public meeting law. We can't vote on it if it's not on the agenda.
I
So it would
understand
have to
that.
be at
So,
an announced public meeting, and we'd have to take a formal vote because we've got an existing order.
I understand that. So I want to be 100% sure that we're on your next agenda. Do I need to file some kind of a document to get there?
Yeah, just send us a letter. You don't have to refile for, you know, it's the same DEP number and hopefully we'll get it correct. But just send a letter asking for a revision to the order of conditions. Not fancy, just, you know.
Okay, then I'm just going to send something that's very similar to the one that I sent on November 9th,
Okay,
which was asking for these changes.
then we can use that. And I guess the key is just to get it on the agenda so we could take
Correct.
a vote. And that's what we would vote on. If you're asking us to revise the order that was issued, we have the authority to do that with those two votes, the two-step process.
Do you think it would be possible to get another order between now and January?
Sure.
I'm sorry?
Would it be
I can probably
possible
do-
to get the order without this condition in it? With if you want to keep the condition in that we have to go up to the maintenance facility, but to clean up all the other pieces between now and January? Because this, are you considering that the order that you submitted is the final order? My understanding was
It was the final order. It's signed and issued.
Okay.
So you're now trying to revise it. I think what you're asking for me is how fast can we do it?
No, I'm trying to get most of the other stuff fixed. Like the 5 years, we don't have any, there's no, do you want me to request that again? We already had you vote on that.
No, might be miscommunicating. I'm trying to make it easier, not harder.
Okay.
If everything you want is in the first letter in November, all we need to do is put it on the agenda for a public meeting, which is necessary for us to vote to see, number one, is it a significant or insignificant revision that you're asking for? And two, if it's insignificant, can we just vote to change the order that has been issued?
Okay.
Thus, the trick right now is to just get it on the agenda for a public meeting. If we have the quorum, we could put it on the agenda for Saturday.
Right.
If we don't have a quorum, if you heard it, I'm not suggesting you weren't paying attention, but if you heard our past discussion, we may not have a quorum. Right now, we don't, because we only have 3 people that are going to show up on Monday, but we've got other missing commission members that I'm going to reach out to tomorrow morning. And if we can get the quorum, we're going to be meeting at 38 Barton's Lane on Saturday morning at 8:30. And so, Philip, will you put this on the agenda for
Absolutely,
Saturday morning?
yes.
All right. And then if you could also, I know you're sending the minutes from May of 2023 for the memory care facility. Can you also add Kelly's letter that she sent in November to the
Sure.
commission, so they'll have it as a packet? All right, and Kelly, we'll stay in touch. Steve, if you could, if we can get the quorum, I'll tell you as soon as I get responses back from Ingrid and Todd and Hans.
Awesome. And
if
then
Kelly, if you stay in touch with Steve, you can figure out if we've got the quorum, so you don't have to take a trip out to 38 Barton's Lane.
So you'll just put us on the agenda for 9 o'clock or whatever time you want to be at 38 Barton's Lane.
Yeah, we'll make it 9 o'clock. We'll be there at 8:30, but I'm sure we'll be looking at Barton's Lane for 30 minutes. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. They're good?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye-bye.
What about other additional business?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the 9th of January is currently scheduled for the DEP appeal for superseding order on 107-111 Highland Street. Be there or be square.
Well, Steve and I are going to be there because we're in communication with Pam Merrill. And the applicant, the group represented by Dan Hill will be there. And I think Ned Cochran, representing Northbridge, will be there. So if you could just email me and tell me if you want to be there, that's great. But if we have a quorum, we have to announce it as a public meeting.
Exactly.
So just tell me if you can make it. What time is it? 10 o'clock?
I
Or
have
11?
11 o'clock. 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. 11 o'clock on January 9th.
9.
So
That
if you
I
could just,
think that's also the date, that's also the date of the January meeting for the Conservation Commission.
That's
is that
correct.
is that a Tuesday? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. And in fact, I've got a list. Next item is I've got a list of dates that are the second Tuesdays. And I'm not sure if you'd like to go through that tonight and make that a draft, or take it up next month.
No, I saw the Lynn DiNapoli had, I think she's looking for that as soon as we can produce it. So I don't know any reason not to have something unless the annual town meeting in May interferes with that. I don't know of any reason why it wouldn't be on the second Tuesday of every month. Unless that's a national holiday on some month, I'm not sure. I'm not aware of it.
There's May 14th is the second Tuesday. National holidays, I don't see any. Would you like me to run through the list just for your perusal?
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's 9 January, 13 February, 12th of March, the 9th of April, the 14th of May, the 18th of June, the 9th of July.
Can you go back to the 18th? How did the second Tuesday end up 18 days into the month?
Oh, good question.
You missed it. It should be June 11th.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, 18, yeah, to change that to 11 June, the 9th of July, the 13th of August, the 10th of September, the 8th of October, the 12th of November, and the 10th of December. Sounds like it's a leap year, doesn't it?
Yeah. Everything looks good. Arthur, do you have any sense as to the town meeting in May?
He's on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, Arthur.
Sorry, I've been trying to preserve everybody from my laryngitis cough.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize for that. Usually it's around the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. But it can go into a second week. It's usually three nights the first week and maybe 2 nights the second week, depending upon the agenda. But we can check with Lynn to see if she has any tentative dates. Linda Napoli.
Okay.
Sure.
Steve, why don't you send in these dates that you just read to Lynn and just put an asterisk next to May and ask her for some guidance as to what the currently scheduled dates are for town meeting.
Certainly, will do.
And Steve, what did you say the February date was? I may have missed
13th.
13th.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. Now here's a question for you. Do we have to announce, I think we do, 2 separate meetings if there was a quorum at the DEP site walk on the 9th? I know we're going to announce the public meeting in the evening. I think we need to have 2 announcements to conform to the public meeting law because they're different places at different times.
Yes.
So as soon as you email, if you could email everybody, actually, why don't you do that, as to whether or not you intend to or would like to go on the 9th, and then we'll know if we have to announce that as a public meeting. All right?
Sure, be happy to do that.
All right. Steve, anything else on additional work?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No, I don't know. Bill Gallagher, do you have a new business that you'd like to address? Nope, I just lost him.
I know, he's there.
Excuse me, yeah,
Oh, there
yes,
you
I
are. There you are. Gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah, my name is Bill Gallagher. I'm a resident of Milton here. I got involved in the marine industry probably about 15 years ago. I'm a volunteer at the Seagreen MIT on oyster project several years ago, mapping oysters out in Boston Harbor. So that experience there generated in my mind a project that I would like to present to the commission here on an oyster project. I talked to Christina Kennedy at the wetlands. She's a scientist there for, we had a very long conversation, and she somewhat supports what I'm saying. The scientist at MIT has interest in it, and it's generally laying down oysters in the Neponset River, just the shells. This is not an oyster farm project or anything like that there. It's basically laying the, I would call it foundation of oysters, and the oysters themselves have calcium in them, which would attract, hopefully, other oysters to this area, which would promote and propagate the oyster population on the Neponset River. So I've been told that I need a permit to do that, to go through the commission here. There is a DCR marine shellfish biologist. I'm going to contact next about this to see how this thing will pan out. So the emphasis I'm saying is that this is not a farm, oyster farm project, but laying down beds and somewhat simulating oyster beds foundation in Chesapeake Bay that are probably 2 or 3 feet more historically. And the larvae, spats they call it, would go down into the bed, protect them from predators, where they'd be able to attach onto the oyster shell and grow into a full-size oyster. That would have a benefit of they are a filtration marine. I'm trying to come up with a correct word here. A marine, well, whatever.
Shellfish.
Shellfish. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly.
And be able to filter the incoming tide and also the outgoing tide, and would be a filtration system, and clean up the Neponset River, along with looking at the Superfund project up there from Baker's Dam up to Mother Brook. This would this would be a beneficial thing to the river and also to the environment itself. That's about what I'm somewhat trying to relay. And I need guidance on what your feedback is. Christina Kennedy mentioned that one of the negative issues, the European oyster, which is considered an invasive species. So I don't know what types are in the river as far as underwater is concerned. So there's a lot of unknowns to me, and it's basically like the negative side. So I'm looking for feedback and direction from the committee here.
Good, Bill. Thank you very much. I talked to Steve Ivas about this, and we're always interested in information coming in. We're not in a position to give an advisory opinion, What we do is we respond to permits. So my suggestion to you is that if you had a proposal, it would have to be backed by scientific, reliably scientific data that would, like you just said, that putting oyster shells allows calcium to, I guess, add to the ambient environment, the water environment, and would encourage other oysters to grow. But number one, I don't know if that has a scientific basis or not. I accept what you said, but I don't have a clue. So we need to hear from the scientists to say that A, that's true. B, there would be other issues as to whether or not the water is salty enough for oysters. I know we just approved the putting up of signs, don't eat the shellfish in the deposit, as a matter of DEP. You know, it's hazardous right now. So I know there are some shellfish there, but I don't know if oysters would survive in the salt freshwater environment. I have no idea, but that's what we need to have a proposal that was backed by scientific data. The other issue is if you're, and I know you know this, but we've got the EPA coming in on a Superfund cleanup above the dam. And then we've got a state proposal and a grant that we're just in the midst of deferring to dredge everything from essentially the Adams Street Bridge, you know, outward towards the Norfolk Yacht Club, or at least in the Ponset River Yacht Club where the bridge is. So if you put anything down there right now, it's going to get dredged up. So I'm not, timing may be significant. But I think it's a great area to explore, particularly at the time that the Superfund is pouring a ton of money into cleaning up the river. So it's a great idea. I just don't know if it has a scientific basis or not, but I would love to hear about it further. And if it could be part of a proposal with scientific support, I'd be delighted. Arthur.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest that Bill contact Ian Cook or Sean McGinty at the Neponset River Watershed Association. They would probably be a good source of information for him on this and probably lead him into some directions that might be helpful. Bill, I take it you're looking at seeding oysters?
No, this is
What?
actually
Implanting. So you're not seeding in saltwater then?
No. And I talked to the Ponce Valley Watershed, talked to Ian Cook about it. He is optimistic about it. You know, he somewhat directed me to, you know, the state, and I went through that. You know, I ended up, you know, talking to here. So as I can go back a little bit into the history of the river, down by the just beyond the Granite Ave Bridge, you have the expressway bridges in there. Talking to the former harbor master, before those bridges went in, there was huge. He described it as huge oyster beds. So normally, historically, the process would be to go to historical beds to start the seeding process. I don't want the seeding process. That brings on a lot of other different regulations, police officers, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I just looking at establishing what I call it like a food supply for oysters. And I'm working from there. And I think as far as the scientific thing, I mentioned the PCR. I can't recall his name right now. The marine biologist, shellfish, might be able to supply me with scientific. Or I could ask scientists I know at MIT to put their opinion in. So I think that's making one of the requirements scientifically providing information. And
I have a remark to make about this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Tommy, go ahead.
Yeah, I've looked for oysters myself in the river. I'll just make a couple of remarks regarding historic beds. If you go to the dredge boil on the Dorchester side of the channel, if you walk out the NWRA embankment and go to those areas that look overgrown now with upland vegetation, those exist because that was where the hoses that discharge the dredge went over the berms that they built around the marshes to hold the dredge spoil. And those dredge spoil islands have many oyster shells in them, big oyster shells, up to 8 or 9 inches long. And those, you can tell they're the so-called native Virginia oysters because the shell will have a navy blue spot on the marbled inner side, on the bright white inner side. The deep portion of the shell will have that spot. But we also now have live European oysters in the river, and you can see them all the way from 88 Wharf down to Black Rock, but you can only see them at extreme low tides. And you can only see them where there's a hard substrate to attach to. So if you stand at the corner of 88 Wharf and look down the rock of the channel at a low tide, you will see the European oysters stuck to the rocks. Another place you will see them is at Black Rock, but again, at extreme low tide. And you can see them also at the end of the NWRA embankment where the pipe goes over to Quincy in Dorchester. And you can see them there because they put in a lot of gravel fill to put in the embankment, and there is another hard substrate. So they're dependent on hard substrate. Now, if you Google a word called CULCH, well-known word in the Chesapeake Bay, it means culch. It means the blend of oyster shells and sand and stones that oyster beds form on. In other words, they're gregarious, and the young planktonic babies can only survive if they land on a hard substrate, like another oyster shell. So it makes a lot of sense to say, if we had oyster beds, if we want to restore them in the river, we have to restore places where the babies can attach, namely hard surfaces. And a lot of those were destroyed by the dredging for the highway and so forth. As you notice now at low tide, you see nothing but mud all the way from the marsh down to the channel, no hard substrates. But in the channel itself, there is sand and gravel that is always underwater. And you can see that also at the Route 3A bridge. If you go there at low tide, you'll notice as the current speeds up to go through the bridge supports, you see drifts of sand and gravel. So there are places along the bottom of the river where these piles of oyster shell might be successful in attracting young oysters. And the more oysters you get, the more water purification you get. So even if the oysters are not edible, it doesn't mean they're not valuable to the ecosystem. So I think Bill is on the right track for an appropriate improvement, and it should be something that we would like to support down the road. I have met Krista Kennedy. She's a wonderful biologist. I think she could be a good mentor for this project. It just sounds like a good idea. I think the question I would ask is, where do you put the shells? And how many shells do you put? That would be my first couple of questions.
All right, the first question is, as you pointed out, you need a subsurface, hard surface. So if an oyster goes into the mud, like a normal, let's say a clam, the oyster will not survive. So as you pointed out, it needs a firm surface in order to survive. That's one of the requirements. And I see that on certain parts of the Neponset River. And also they're able to survive out of the water between the tide shifts. So
Yes.
you not necessarily have to be in the deeper water area. I have a sonar system on my boat that would be able to pick those oysters up. When I get the boat in the water, I'll do that on the Ponset River to see if there are any shells in the river itself. The system I have on my boat, it generates a 3D image of the Ponset River, and I could see generally what the topography is of the river itself. And I forget your second question there, Tom. What you refer.
I didn't really have a question. I would mention if anybody has ever walked down Morrissey Boulevard lately to where the outlet of Savin Hill Cove is, if you look down on the side by UMass, you can see a big oyster bed right down the outlet of the pond. And for some reason, that was a healthy oyster bed up until a year or two ago. And then they all died. And that kind of surprise die-off, it's not that unusual. It happened to the oysters that were at the NWRA embankment in Dorchester above Granite Avenue. There were many more of them there 5 years ago than there are now. So this is a sort of a fluid situation. It's a river that's getting cleaner and is getting repopulated, but in unpredictable ways by unpredictable organisms. I think that this idea of adding shell at the right spots could be very good for oysters, but certainly the plan needs to be developed, as John said, with a lot of expert input.
Yes. Yeah, just to point out, oysters' cycle of life, at the end, they basically die off. That might indicate the bed that you mentioned that deteriorated over the years. Or it might be an environmental issue. So yeah, there's a lot of questions out there. So so to end my talk, I appreciate the direction you have given me, and I will certainly follow up on it and see what the results will be. So thank you for the encouragement.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. And I do suggest you stay in touch with Tom, because I think you've got a strong advocate there, Tom
Yes.
Palmer.
Yeah, Tom and I know each other. So, yeah, we'll talk later. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Bill, very much. All right, I think that's it for additional business, folks, unless anybody has anything. Arthur, I hope.
One more site for beavers.
What's that?
Beavers are in Pine Tree Brook. I noticed that beavers have been on Pine Tree Brook in between Uland Rink and Arlen Street Dam. They've been in there lately. Yeah, that's one more site where they showed up. They didn't stay. Yeah, they were there long enough to do some chewing. I think they're checking out all over town to find out where they want to move in.
All right, well, it's all good news, Tom. It's all good news. All right, thanks. So I'll see Arthur and Tom and on Saturday, and I will do my best to corral some others so we have a quorum on Saturday. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks. Arthur, I hope you feel much better quickly. And you get over your laryngitis. All right, all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Good to go. Thanks all. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Good night.
Talk to you tomorrow.